All right, well, let's afternoon, Grahame Morris and Bruce Hawker, who's back in the country after a few weeks away. Good to see you back again, Bruce. Thank you both for joining us. Let's just start. Well, we've got a few things I'd like to talk about, but I want to pick apart this issue around One Nation and where the parties, and you've both been involved in a lot of campaigns, where the parties do at times try to make a bit of money legitimately or perhaps illegitimately through campaign expenses. Campaign expenses you can claim back from the electoral authorities. And Bruce, perhaps we need to explain why it's different in Queensland to federal elections when it comes to campaign expenses.
You want me to explain it?
Well, yes, if you'd like. The main difference, sorry to put you on the spot there, that with Queensland, you can claim the receipts back. So if you've spent $5 on a core flute, that's what you can claim back. Federally, though, it's a funding based on per vote. How many votes you accumulate is how much money you'll get. Yeah. Whereas, you can go to individual items, and this is why there was this discussion around inflating the price tag and putting in an $11 receipt to the electoral authorities in Queensland rather than a $5 receipt for what it actually cost.
Yeah, and of course, that opens the way to fraud. And I'm not saying that that's happened in this case at all, but certainly there was a discussion. And it just points to, I think, a cynicism in certain political parties and people who are operatives in political parties trying to maximise returns for their own benefit.
But does it go on in the major parties? Because this is certainly what One Nation's suggesting.
Well, not to my knowledge, and as you know, David, I've always worked at the political end rather than the administrative end of the Labor Party, as I think Grahame has with the Liberals as well. So one of the things that we don't really see is the nitty-gritty detail. We don't see the sausages being made, and that's probably just as well. And not that we try to stay away from it, it's just that it's other people's business. So I could not say unequivocally that this has never happened with the Labor Party, but I've never been privy to anything like that, and I've never heard it being discussed.
I actually used to make the sausages as well, and for well over a decade. I was in charge of the printing for the Liberal Party at a federal level. And I tell you, we used to go to all the different printers. We would get the best quote, and over time you would learn who was a good printer, who would miss deadlines, who were sloppy printers. And that was for all the brochures, which might be everything from, say, a print run of 5,000 to, say, 50,000. And then the big job at the end of the year, which is at the end of the season, is sort of the how to vote card, and that's serious printing. And there we would go to whichever state headquarters printer was the best and had the best price. This idea that somehow or other, we'd gouge, certainly not in my time. It cost a fortune, and we paid a true price.
What about, and some have pointed to this today, paraphernalia? So the Liberals, it's a little bit different here, but the Liberals have a communications allowance, I think it is, and they put a lot of that to a company called Paraphernalia, which is, I think it's owned by the Liberal Party or majority owned by the Liberal Party, and that's a way that they can funnel some of that taxpayer money back into the Liberal Party's coffers?
That's a different thing. That's not what Ashby's talking about.
It is a different thing.
That is just servicing the backbench and that sort of thing. People give up their staff, and it's sort of a pooling of staff. Now, the other thing is the printing by the parties. And I can tell you, because I did it, that yes, it's very expensive for the parties, and by jingoes, I'd have loved to have made a buck out of it, but we didn't. And even the printers themselves, it was a prestigious job. And at times, I think they were even taking a haircut just to take the job.
Is there anything, Bruce, from what you've seen here? I mean, if it's just an idea that's floated as part of a conversation, they didn't actually do it, does that mean anything's, potentially illegal here that needs to be looked at by police?
Well, I'd hesitate to put offer a legal opinion about it, but if people are in the act of conspiring to do something, then that, of course, does put it into a criminal category. Now, I'm not saying that happened in this case at all. It sounds like there was a lot of talk going on, and maybe this fellow Ashby was floating an idea, but that's probably as far as it got.
The thing was on the tape that it was said that if this is disclosed, we'll deny it.
Yeah.
And I think, that's the awkward thing.
Yeah, very awkward. And of course, I mean, and the broader political issue is that, the One Nation Party is meant to be the party of the outsiders, the people who are trying to drain the swamp in the Australian context, like Trump was doing in the US, and yet they are seen here to be actively considering something which is a very cynical manipulation, if it were to happen, of electoral funding laws, and just goes.
Well, that's a good point.
Goes to a very.
Because it's all. The One Nation appeal is all about the system's crooked, it's corrupt. We're the ones who are going to break apart the two-party stranglehold. But if there's an appearance that they've been trying to rot the system, that's completely counter to all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I hope it's wrong. I hope what everyone says is true, and that was. It was talked about, God knows why, and it was put in the bin, so it should have been.
Now, let's talk about the budget, talking about much bigger figures here. In fact, the Medicare levy, whether it should be increased for all to help pay for the NDIS or not. Bruce, you've probably been watching this debate from afar over the last week or so, and today we see there was quite a split in the shadow cabinet on this as well. What do you reckon about the issue itself and the fact this is now leaking out, not something we see too often in the Shorten Labor Party?
Well, that's probably more disturbing than the actual debate in a way, because it would appear from the reports that I've read that the shadow cabinet left it up to the leadership group to make a call on it, and that decision was made to apply it to people on salaries of over $87,000 per annum. What is a little bit more worrying, though, is that somebody saw fit to release this information to the media, and probably in a rather calculated way. I mean, loose lips sink ships, no doubt about that. And the most impressive thing, in a way, about the Labor Party post Gillard Rudd is that it has managed to hold together. And
it has.
Not
it's
just,
been a tight ship.
Yeah,
and they're ahead in the polls, right? I mean, they're doing pretty well. You can talk about Bill Shorten's personal ratings, but as a party, they're doing well. So, Bruce, why do you think this is happening now?
Well, I'm not going to say that this is all part of a bigger move by anybody. I think somebody's nose was probably out of joint about it and felt the need to vent. And I would just counsel whoever that person was not to do it, because it will only end in tears, just like it did for us, between 2010 and 2013. It's not a good way to go. And if somebody does feel unhappy with the decision of the leadership group, then you're better off just keeping those discussions internal. Because right now, as you point out, David, Labor is leading, they're doing well. The last thing they need to do is to look like they're the Liberal Party and split asunder, because that just is a gimme for Turnbull.
Yeah. Grahame, it's a really interesting issue, though, to have some sort of split and leak on, because it is no trivial matter here. It's about whether they go to the campaign saying that those earning up to 87 grand should pay less tax. And an issue that's allowed the government to get out there and say we're the ones fully funding the NDIS.
And I think that's right. I can't see how you can say we believe in the National Disability Insurance Scheme, but we won't fund it properly. How can you say that? Everyone is...
Well, I think they're saying they're not funding it properly. They argue they are in a different way.
No. Everyone has known in the last few years that the money isn't there. You'd get to about September each year and you'd say to all the carers and everyone, oh, sorry, we can't do anything for the next 3 months. Come and talk to us in January. The money wasn't there. And this is something that is growing and growing, and it's bigger than everyone thought.
Yeah, but this is something, by the way...
And the government has said, we will fund it.
Yeah, and this is certainly something that the Liberal Party signed up for, no doubt about that. I mean, I think in fairness to Bill Shorten and co, they're saying, well, there are some people who are more able to pay than others. And if you are earning less than $87,000 a year in Australia, you're probably doing it pretty tough, particularly if you live in Sydney or Melbourne, and being hit with an extra impost under the Medicare levy, is going to be very painful for those people. So they do have to have a look at that.
Bruce, a 49.5% top marginal rate, is that okay?
Well, I worry a little bit about that too, I've got to say. I think the world has moved on somewhat since then, and I think we just have to be very realistic about that too. But we have to look at areas of spending and where we can cut seriously and save the budget in those ways as well, and not just be putting more impost on people who struggle to pay in the first place.
All right, quick one because we are nearly out of time. But the anniversary today, the 75th anniversary of the Robert Menzies Forgotten People speech. Grahame, you know this will be there'll be a big event here in Canberra tonight.
Yeah, I'm going tonight to Old Parliament House. It's a good anniversary. The Liberal Party has finally, learned how to celebrate.
Which the Libs don't do as well as Labor, do they?
And when you think about, when you read the speech, it's actually, it's 1942, different era. But it's actually a very good speech, and it talks about the sort of small business people, the farmers, all of those sort of people who are out there having a go, risking their money, trying to employ some people. They're not the sort of wage earners. They're certainly not the wealthy, and they're the sort of core of the Liberal Party. And to win, the Liberal Party's got to hang on to them and add a group like Howard added his battlers.
Yeah. Bruce, are you a big fan of the speech itself?
Yeah, well, I think it's a good speech, and it's much like the Light on the Hill speech that Ben Chifley gave a few years later. And in a sense, it espouses similar values. It's an anti-ideology speech. It's about the lifters, the people that are working hard to make the country great. And Labor always has been the party of the workers, people who are doing their bit to make the country great. And so it counterbalanced that. The Menzies speech counterbalances that and complements, I think, Chifley's speech quite well, because it's talking about the middle ground in politics and the people who aren't ideological, who just want to make this country a much better place in which to live. And as such, I think it resonates with people from all walks of life.
It certainly resonated enough to see Menzies become the longest-serving Prime Minister in Australian history. We've got to go. We'll catch you both next week. Bruce Hawker, Grahame Morris. Bye for now. Quick break and back with the last word.